seems to me that there's somewhat of a crisis of maturity, let's say, among young people today. And I'm not blaming them for this. I think it's a consequence of technological transformation and immense cultural confusion. But I'd like to talk to you about what you've seen as necessary to help immature young people mature and become responsible citizens, and what all that means, like why that's advantageous, why it's necessary, and how it can be done, and why we're not doing a particularly good job of it, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about this, so thanks for bringing it up. I think if we talk about advantages, if we look at you or I and we get to a certain point in life, we can get feeling superior. We say, well, we've been successful because we worked hard or whatever. We started on third base and thought we hit a triple. And we did because I had two parents that I admired who loved me, and they put structure. I was one of 6 kids, and there was structure. And I didn't like all of it at the time. But the reality is they didn't talk about values. They demonstrated values. Mm-hmm. They forced us to live within a certain left and right limit, we would call it. And maybe at the time, I wouldn't have just on my own come up with that, but they did that. The education I received also gave me a pretty solid set of foundation stones that I could stand on. I think what has happened is we've weakened those. We've weakened the family in America. We've weakened some of the things we ask or demand young people to do, or give them the opportunity to be a part of, certain structured things that I think help. You know, it was funny. I entered the Army in the 1970s. I came out of West Point, and the Army was still struggling after post-Vietnam. And some of the best senior sergeants, non-commissioned officers I ever worked with, sergeants major, had come from these really terrible backgrounds. I mean, single family or no parents and no opportunity. But they'd come into the Army, and the Army had put in front of them a set of values, pretty admirable values. And they'd looked at that, and they'd said, okay, I accept that. Mm-hmm. And they embraced them. And in some ways, they embraced them better than the officer corps. Came out of colleges. It was a little more nuanced and thought through. These guys and gals just literally said, okay, that's right, that's wrong. And when you were serving with them, it was amazing. Sometimes we'd be hand-wringing over what we should do. And one of these people would look at you and go, hey, there's a right and wrong here. What are we talking about? And they were always right. And so when it comes back, I think we owe young people the experience. I think we learn through experience. We don't learn through civics class or government works. We learn through things we do. And so if we can give young people the opportunity to be part of a team where they've got to subordinate some of their uniqueness, they've got to sometimes shut up and row, because that's how society, all of us have got to spend part of our time doing that. They have to respect other people. They have to live by a set of values that gives everybody else their opportunity to succeed as well. Then I think what you do is you create an opportunity for them to learn, I call it citizenship, but learn the way to fit in that gives them a much greater opportunity to be successful.
Yeah, okay, so that's real interesting to me, because one of the things I learned when I was reading Friedrich Nietzsche in particular is he was a great critic of Christianity, but also a great admirer of the Catholic Church. And one of the things he said about Catholicism was that over the centuries of its unfolding, that it required all of its practitioners to adopt a particular disciplined ethos and to explain the world within the confines of a single coherent system, and then also to act that out. And so Nietzsche was very interested in the development of, let's call it, full individuality. But he also knew that the pathway to individuality was through the rigors of a disciplinary structure. And I think this is something our society hasn't discussed well, because it's useful for us as people who believe in individual sovereignty to concentrate on individual uniqueness, but it's naive of us to fail to understand that part of that unique individuality is developed as a consequence of subordination to some disciplinary structure, right? Before you can become full-fledged, you have to become something. And it might be something narrow, right? You have to pick a path of some sort and commit to it, whatever that path is. And I've been telling young people, especially in my lectures, that if they're lost, they need to commit to something, even if they don't know what that optimal something should be. And they have to lose themselves in it to some degree. And that seems to go against that individualist ethos, but it's actually a precursor to it.
You know, you say that, and it strikes a personal chord with me. I entered the Army at age 17, and I still fold my underwear in my drawers, even though there's probably no great reason for that. But many of the things they taught me gave me a personal discipline that kept me remembering who I am. And when I left the service, there was a fair amount of, notoriety about the Rolling Stone article and whatnot. It was a personal failure. But what I had was I had a sense of who I was. And I kept doing many of the things that I had done before because it reassured me that some of the good habits that I had, some of the good values I believed in, I don't suddenly throw those away because they help define me. The cause I'm involved with now is the Service Year Alliance, and that's a movement to give every young American a year of civilian national service experience, paid. And so it's not limited to upper middle class families who can support, their child with a gap year. But it's to give people a year at healthcare, education, conservation, whatever they want to do as part of a team, hopefully working with people not from their zip code. And they've got to subordinate themselves to a bigger cause. They may not love what they're doing, but I would argue that a decade or 2 decades later, they'll go, yeah, that was good for me.
Yeah, so that's that opportunity to be engaged in a disciplinary process.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. And we tend to think of disciplinary processes as only composed of limitations, and so as antithetical to an optimal freedom. But it is much more appropriate to consider them as preconditions to the kind of self-mastery that enables you to have some freedom. Okay, so that sounds like a variant of the Peace Corps idea to some degree. And so, where are you? Where is that plan in terms of implementation?
Yeah. The Peace Corps is part of it. It's a subset of it. And AmeriCorps, City Year, all the different things you probably teach for America, they're all part of this. And the idea is the Service Year Alliance, we're now pushing to get legislation to increase the Serve America Act, which went in 1997. So there are programs in the United States for about 200,000 young people a year now, not counting the military. But we have 4 million young people in every cohort. So the reality is we've got to expand this so that every young person possible gets that opportunity to do a year of that experience before college, or if they're not going to college, before they go. We've had some good political support. Our strongest political supporter, John McCain, unfortunately passed last year. We are working the Hill. It's a non-political cause. So we're trying to work both sides and let people come together in consensus. But people have been distracted, so we've still got a lot of work to do.
Right, but you say it's at the point already where it's being implemented. It is being implemented for about 200,000 young people a year?
Yes, sir. And they vote at 3 times the rate of people who don't have a year of service later in their lives.
Oh, yeah, so that's, okay. So how do young people go about applying for this now and finding out about it?
The easiest way is to get on the Service Year Alliance website. Cisco Corporation paid for and created a great platform so young people and their parents can go on. They can literally shop for the kind of experience that would be good for them. They can connect with people who are doing or have done that experience. Parents can get comfortable that their young person will be safe and whatnot. And so we can match opportunities